In this lesson, you will learn how to work with release processes. So what are release processes? If you are in ALM Octane, you will see that there is a new module called, or new submodule called Processes under Release Management. This module, Processes, should help you to orchestrate and plan and organize your releases. So what's the difference between processes and releases? If you are in releases, and let's take an example release we have just created on line 1.1, and in the timeline you can see I have already scheduled my release. I have planned the dates, I have defined some milestones, and also the execution of the different sprints, start and end date, and I can clearly see where I am today. I see all those different milestones which are release specific, but also some milestones which are independent from releases, are more acting like global milestones for my organization. So here on this plan I can already see how my release looks like. So the release processes now helps you to orchestrate and coordinate the execution of this timeline. So for example, you could have such a plan created in MS project in order to coordinate and orchestrate the execution of the timeline defined in ALM Octane. And here you have different kind of activities defined for user stories, like identifying key stakeholders, which takes a couple of days. You want to form the project team, define a couple of workshops around the user story definition and discussion until you sign them off. You do some activities around the product backlog and high-level sprint planning, like project timelines, draft resource plan, and plan project budget. And then you are in the execution, where also you want to track different kind of activities on the different sprint level. So this plan you can now orchestrate directly in ALM Octane. So you don't need to build such a plan and orchestration in MS project anymore. You can directly do it in ALM Octane. And therefore we have the new module or new submodule release processes. So let's go back. And now let's navigate to the module release processes. And this module is also available. It's only available if you have the enterprise license of ALM Octane. So let's go here. You can see already I have created two example plans, but now we will create release process or release execution plan for the release we have just created. And we can also define this now as a template, as I can always make a reuse of it. So let's say this is our release plan, and I can enter the timeline. So it started already before the sprint execution. So I say it's even on the 1st of February, while as my release starts end of February. And here I can say it will go until May. And I can define an owner, and this owner is potentially the release manager. It could also be the product owner if you want, but majorly it's the release manager who's taking care that all those activities are performed and executed. So let's say I will take my user, and now what I can do is I can assign the release I want to orchestrate with this release process. So I have already linked it. You can link multiple releases. With my first experiences, I think it's better to link only one releases, and because you can then really do the execution and orchestration per release, but it allows you to link multiple releases here. And if you want, you have also some milestones you can select out of the release which you want to have also organized here. So you could say I would like to have all the different milestones from my release directly here. The independent one, I don't care. It's possible to link them, and you can provide here a description of the release process. So once I edit, a new item will be created. You can see it is already overdue because I am in the middle of February, end of February. So this should be planned and created ahead a release before you start executing it. But as an example, let's go in now and see what it provides. So you can see now I am on the release process itself called release plan, and here I have the details tab, which is usually similar to the ones you know from other entities. Now we have also something called process flow, and this process flow now can include different activities organized by different groups and actions, and you can have also acceptance criteria, quality gates defined in order to orchestrate the whole process. So now let's get started with it. So I would now start and say the first thing I would like to organize here is if we go back to our release plan we had. So let's go here. And here you can see I have those kind of stages which I could define here. And this is exactly what I'm going to do. So back in ALM Octane, the first thing as a stage, what I would say, this is the planning stage. So let's say this is planning, and here it started already 1st of February, and this should end probably before we are in the sprint execution. So the sprint execution started here on the 22nd. So I can say it goes until the 21st of February. And duration, if I want, I can type in here directly 3 weeks, 2 days, how many hours. So this is up to me. So let's say 3 weeks is good. And now I can also assign if the children should run in parallel or if it's a sequential execution of all the different items I have defined. So I will say it is in a sequential execution. This is fine for me. And here I can also define the stage if I want. So the stage type, and we have here 4 types like plan, develop, test, and deploy. So I can orchestrate this as well, and say I would like to add it and add another one. So the another one is like develop, and I would go into the develop and say this started here, and I will going to measure the whole release, the sprint execution itself. So let's go, it continued until the 25 of April. Stage type is develop. Here I could potentially allow it, but I will leave it for now. So let's say these are 5, 10, 11 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. And the owner, I can select also here my user and say this is fine. Add. And now finally maybe I can add here a couple of QA stages if I want, but I would directly say deploy to production is the next stage, and this starts once the release is implemented and goes directly here at the end of April. We should be done. It is just a couple of days, so let's say this is 5 days, and the owner which I want to define is also myself, and this will be deploy, add. So now you can see I have already added the 2-3 stages. Let me go switch the view, which is more friendly in the grid. So, and here on this planning phase, I can now define groups. So the first group would be definitely the user stories, which was in my MS project. So let's go back here. You can see here user stories, and I will now list all these things, these activities here. So let's say these are the user stories, and I started them the 1st of February, and they should end probably here. So we still have time for the other 2 in the planning. So let's say this is 1 week only. So we are here and we will end it directly here. Duration is 1 week. Owner you can define here, and I say the owner will be now Jolanta Stischer, and this belongs to the stage planning. Once I'm done, I can say add, and I would like to add 2 others, which are the product backlog, and do the start time. It starts on the 8th, goes until the 12th. Duration is 5 days. Okay, and here the owner is Joel Flückiger. This is fine. And now let's add the last one, which was here the high level sprint planning. So let's say high level sprint planning. And this is directly before we start the release itself. We have already started, but for this example it's okay. So 5 days. I can define the owner, which is Jolanta, and this should be it. Now you can see I have created a couple of stages, and I have also defined the owners. Here on the first one the owner is missing. Let me select the owner. Okay, so here you can see, and what you directly see is if things are already overdue, and you can have the same collaboration in this plan like you know from other entities in Octane. So it will send out also emails if something is not performed. But now we have just defined the groups here. So let's go and continue the groups as well and define on the groups couple of actions. Yeah, so the first action for us would be here to identify the key stakeholder. Identify key stakeholders. And let's say start time is here on the first. Duration will be, let's say 2 days max, or let's say 1 day only, and end time would be then here. On the second, owner is myself. This is fine. Add another, and now I can say this is my workshops for user stories, or story workshops, let's call it this way, story workshops. And this will be then from the 2nd till the 4th, and we have here 3 days. Owner is Jolanta. This is okay. And now the last one would be story sign off, and this should be started on Thursday till Friday. It's a 1 day activity driven by Joel, and add. So now you can see I have added these actions. Still they are in delay. It doesn't really matter to me. So, and as a last step, what I can also do here on the group itself is I can say I would like to organize, or let's say here I would like to organize a quality gate. Yeah, so I do a story sign off, and I would like to have here like a specific quality gate which is the precondition for my next step. So this could be, for example, let's say the stories which are being signed off should be aligned to roadmap. Yeah, so let's say here this starts directly here and also ends maybe. Yeah, I think this is a activity which you just need to validate that all the stuff you have there is fine. So we say it's end on the same day, and it's just let's say it's 2 hours, and it will be done by my user. This is good. And now under the aligned roadmap, the quality gate itself, I can define the user criteria, input criteria, and I can say, okay, check signed off stories are aligned to roadmap. Provide a description, whatever this is. And you can add also additional tasks if you want to define your overall plan. So this would be basically the approach you would take in order to implement. Let me finalize it, and then we will present the completed process, how it looks like, and then we are going to start it as well. Yeah? Let me finalize it for now. So I have started, and I'm currently I've completed my planning part by defining the user stories, the product backlog, and assigning the different people and timelines to it, defining quality goals for the sprint planning as well, and the different actions. Now I am in the develop phase or stage where I have already completed the first execution of my sprint, and now the sprint execution looks similar. Yeah, from sprint to sprint, and what I can do now is I can select the sprint and say duplicate, and I have 4 sprints, so I can do this multiple times. So these sprints are then created and copied, and this will make things easier for me to complete my plan by reusing some of the work I have already done. So here I can keep it. I will change this later. Let me go here and do the sprint 3. We have sprint 4, and the final sprint 5 looks a bit different. So now this has been copied as well. So this is sprint 5, and here we do planning, retrospective. We don't have a demo as such, and a bit of QA. So let's say this is additional QA, demo we don't need, so I can delete it. And retrospective, as this is a smaller timeline, and basically this would it be for my develop part. I can see I have a sprint which is still a copy, sprint 3. So here you can see the overall plan which I've created, and I could continue now here in deploy to production by defining the different phases of this stage. One thing which I have done on the sprint level is that I allowed the actions and quality gates to be performed in parallel. For instance, I have here an action called execution, and execution will take place the whole sprint, which includes the demo. So I want these to run in parallel, while as the demo will end before the execution is completed. So this is something what I can define. And the great thing about such a plan in Octane directly is that you can make use of the Octane collaboration structure and platform, and also assign business rules to it in order to send the emails, etc. And if I want to get started with one of the processes, I can say I want to start it, and now Octane will start the process and it will become in progress, and you can see that the first action is now in pending. So I can go ahead and get started with the first item, and once this is defined for me as a release manager, a project manager, I have a complete overview. Okay, this is done. I come here and say done. Yeah. So let's say it, and you will see one thing. Octane measures the time. Yeah? So you see currently it took less than a minute, yeah, for sure, because I just created here on finished. And now the next one is story workshop, so I can organize it, and I see here it will require 2 days. So it will also allow me to send out an email to Jolanta, so she can start working on this activity. So it basically supports all the customization features, which also other entities support. So you can see here in the workflow customization of this workspace, I have a release process defined. A release process contains its different stages and phases. You have a stage defined, which you can align here also based on the different phase you have in your organization. You have a group defined, an action defined, as well as a quality gate defined. And on all of those, you can add additional fields, you can add rules, and make use of the automated workflow in order to trigger notification, comment, and assign users. You can also trigger webhooks to get things started in your change management system or deployment management system. So this is really something which is tied to the ALM Octane platform. So you can make use of all the different items which are provided. And once you have created such a release plan, you can always go here and say, this release plan I would like to duplicate. And now this is very important. If this is acting as your template plan, or you want to copy a plan which you have from a previous release, you can do it and say, this is now my new plan for online 2.1 or 2.2. And here in the details of this plan, you can now assign the release you want to cover with this, and it is then already orchestrated for you with the new timelines. You can adjust them directly here, and that's it. And you see here it also provided the comment in the comment from where this entity has been copied. So this release processes is a very useful feature provided in ALM Octane in order to allow you the coordination and orchestration of your release timeline and involve all the different stakeholders in this centralized collaboration platform. So that was it. Hope you enjoyed it, and talk to you next time.